Hi there, Sitecore enthusiasts, and welcome to another episode of Friday Sitecore Best Practices. My name is Vasily Fomichev, and I'm a Sitecore MVP. In this episode, I'd like to get back to usability in Content Editor and Sitecore Experience Editor, and talk about setting some default values on our renderings. Once in a while, we run into cases when a particular rendering or sub-layout never really changes. It always goes to the same place on the website or same places on website pages, always uses the same settings, or always uses the same data source. Almost always, at least, right? So in cases like that, Sitecore allows us to set default values on renderings and sublayouts. So if we take a look here, what I've done is I've created a controller rendering, a default controller rendering. I even kept the default name. The section that I'd like to take your attention to is the data section, in particular the placeholder, data source, and parameter fields. So this is where we can set the default placeholder, default data source, and default parameters for our renderings. So next time we go to add a rendering or a sublayout to our solution, we don't have to worry about specifying the placeholder, data source, or parameters for that matter. These will come in from the default values unless we need to customize them. So what I frequently see is editors setting the default value for open properties after add to yes, and I think they can just cover and get away with that, even though the data source itself, for instance, never changes. That's one of the mistakes that I see instead of specifying the default data source. So by setting the properties, the open properties after add to yes, what this does is it forces the properties window to open when the rendering gets added, prompting the user to specify the data source. However, if the data source doesn't change, why not just set it here, right? So again, the data source, parameters, and the placeholder, that the default values are always good to set. In fact, it's always a good practice to set default values, right? You never want your content authors editors to fail, right? Just in case if they forgot to specify a value. So it's always good to put in the default values and allow them to modify them, right, if needed. So hopefully you liked this tip, and if you did, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and for more tips like this, check out cmsbestpractices.com, and I'll see you next Friday. Over and out.